About Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and the subject of Rodgers being a game manager came up, and Stephen A. had something to say.
But when you call him a game manager, that's not what he was brought to New York to do. That's not why Garrett Wilson is there. That's not why Breece Hall is there, what have you. You need Aaron Rodgers to look like Aaron Rodgers. That's what you brought him there for. It doesn't have to be the Aaron Rodgers from 15 years ago or whatever. But it does need to be the Aaron Rodgers from 5, 6 years ago, stuff like that. Yes, you do need him to go out there and play lights out.
Okay, so why are you shaking your head like that?
We have to stop expecting Aaron to be what he was 5 or 6 years ago, 15 years ago. And most quarterbacks, we're in a different time in the NFL right now. The way defenses are playing football, the expectation isn't going to be 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns for quarterbacks anymore. It's not 2019 anymore. We have to stop thinking that that's going to be the case. That's fair.
Now, what I will say, and I know you have a tape put together, is that generally speaking through 2 games, the Jets offense has been very unexplosive, whatever the opposite of explosive is. So show me what they are doing and what we should be expecting if they can get better.
1, most teams have been that way. 2, I think tonight comes down to the Jets' offensive success in empty. Okay, they motion the back out. Number 1, he's matched by corner. Aaron immediately knows zone. Then it becomes a math game. There's 3 guys on the bottom of the screen, receiver and defensive back-wise. He knows he's good there. There's 3 guys defensively up top, but only 2 receivers. One of those guys could be the blitzer. Aaron knows. So he sends a center, left guard, and left tackle left for that extra blitzer. And then he watches that corner, soft up top. Remember, zone defense. Aaron knows it. He's going to catch the football, get it out quickly. There's no defender within 10 yards of a back. You want to talk about a long handoff. Exactly that. Again, empty tonight is going to be a huge deal. Motion the back out. He's matched by corner. America, you should know that means zone defense. Watch how quickly he gets this ball out of his hands, realizing soft coverage, hold the backer 1.7 seconds to get 15 yards. That's easy for pass protection tonight against the New England Patriot defense. Now you want to play man. Back matched by linebacker, not zone, but it's man. Hold that safety, and Aaron knows I'm good enough to throw this ball anywhere needed, and that back, Breece Hall, is a viable pass-catching threat. And the thing that matters is, if you guys remember Tampa, Tom Brady, what did they live in eventually? They lived in empty because they could protect them, and then they had the people to create those matchups. I think tonight is a massive game for the Jets' empty offensive package and Aaron running the show at the line.
Can their offense get much better than what it has been? Whether it's explosive or not, let's not quibble. Can it get much better?
I think it can, especially when you see this football team, how they started slow in their first and second week football games, right? It took the 3rd drive in week 1 versus San Francisco before they got going. It took the 4th drive last week. But I also feel like they can be better when it comes to 1st and 2nd down production, which is imperative tonight, because the last thing you want to be in against this defensive front is 3rd and long situations. So I feel like they have an opportunity to get better.
Yeah, and they were poor on 3rd and long in this pass game against the Tennessee Titans. And Dan, to your point, I do expect to see a lot of empty. You're talking about Rodgers and Tom. Those are guys that when you empty it out, now I can see exactly what the defense is doing and how they attack me. I think to counter that, though, New England has the personnel to match up. When you talk about, all right, the back's all the way at number 1, now they're playing zone because the cornerback's out there. For New England, when you have safeties like Duggar and Pepper, who you talked about, their versatility, you can put a safety out there and he can play the role of a cornerback. So I think the matchups-wise, New England's in a good spot.
Greeny, let me say this really quick because of his point. I talked to one of the Seattle Seahawks coaches last night, and I was like, what was the toughest part about preparing for New England? He said, number 1, their defensive front, but their 2 safeties in Duggar and Peppers because they can play at that linebacker depth.
Through these, let's start in Pittsburgh. Should Justin Fields be the permanent starter if the Steelers beat the Chargers on Sunday?
Is water wet? Does the sun rise every? Yes. He's done nothing but grow, develop, and take advantage of the opportunity. I've said, everyone's talked about they only scored 13 points last week versus Denver Broncos. They had 2 touchdowns called back, okay? He's throwing the ball well downfield. He's operating cleanly. He's not holding on to the football. This is an offense that is plenty capable with their defense of playing with anybody.
Let's talk about your old guy, and that's Matthew Stafford. Should the Rams consider trading Stafford if they appear to be completely and hopelessly out of a playoff chase?
The internal information with their injuries is the biggest part. And if they come away from those injuries to their offensive line, specifically the interior, and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp say late October we'll be whole, then I think it has to be at least a conversation in their front office with the Los Angeles Rams. Is it worth moving on from Matthew and starting a rebuild?
And then finally, let's go from an older guy to a much younger guy. Should Bryce Young ask for a trade out of Carolina?
Yesterday, if I were Bryce Young, if I were Bryce Young's people, if I were Bryce Young's family, I would want out of that organization as quickly as possible. His future is not there. And for him to even start thinking about potentially becoming a viable NFL starter, it has to be somewhere else.
Okay, so I want to set this up because it was this topic on the First Draft podcast yesterday. We were talking about the struggles that Bryce Young has had. And Field Yates started getting into the too high safety look that has become so popular among all NFL defenses, and we'll show you that in a moment. And before we could say another word, Mel Kiper Jr., as only he can, just dove into the middle of the conversation, and he had a very strong opinion.
That should be outlawed.
Too high safeties? You don't like that? Yeah.
When you go to games,
Yeah.
I've been there a ton of Raven games.
Yeah.
And it was years ago when this all started. And I'm sitting there and Lauren was with me. I said, what are these guys doing at? They're like 30
hanging
yards
out in
off
the back.
scrimmage. I go, where are they? They're out in outer space somewhere. How you gonna throw a ball down the field?
Yeah,
So
you can't.
Again, I would say we say where you have to line up. I would put a rule in place that brings those safeties up closer to the line of scrimmage. I would outlaw that because that is ruining the game. The things we saw back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we're not going to see now. The routes that we were working on then, you can't run because you got that going on. That should be outlawed.
The moment we finished recording that podcast, which, by the way, will be available today around noon and is every single week, I texted the people who run Get Up, and I said, we need to talk about this, and we need Mel to be on the program in order to do it. Before we sort of dive in, and we have a receiver, we have a quarterback, we have a defensive back, so we've got all these different elements covered, and, of course, we have the great Mel Kiper. Let's do two things. First, Dan, let's demonstrate exactly what it is he's talking about. I don't like using terms like too high safety and just assuming everyone in our audience knows exactly what that means. So in English, not in footballese, let's show them what that is.
All right, so first of all, too high safeties has been around for a long time. Tony Dungy made Tampa 2, the defense, famous down there. So why are teams playing too high safety a little bit more at a frequency than in the past? Okay, number one, they're trying to minimize the explosive plays with dynamic athletes at quarterback and wide receiver. Number two, they want athletes on the field, meaning 5 defensive backs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now too high safeties is this. I'm going to cut the field in half very simply, and I'm going to draw a line in between these hashes. Now, too high safeties mean there's going to be 2 safeties back, okay? He's responsible for that half of the field in some capacity. He's responsible for that half the field in some capacity. Eyes on the quarterback. So no one gets deeper than those guys to take away the explosive. Then what they do is they take those 7 underneath defenders and they just have vision and responsibility on the quarterback. Now, when those guys have vision and responsibility, that corner's responsible for that area. This corner's responsible for that area. And then these 3 linebacker people, they're responsible in a zone with vision on the quarterback for that area. Now, this is why they're doing it and how can offenses attack it. There's really only 4 places to try to throw the football, okay? The 2 places up top vertically are what they know is like those honey holes, right? Those turkey hole shots, high risk, high reward, but low percentage. And then the other area is going to be the seam behind all those linebackers. Again, difficult throws for offenses to take advantage of. Defenses really want you to play drop back football. They want to play with that vision. Look at, this is what we say when we say have a cap on the offense. Everything is capped in front, and you have 7 defenders underneath. That ball has to come out because the pass rush, and bang, everybody rally. That's what too high defense is at its fundamental state.
So if Mel's point is that it is completely changed with the proliferation of it right now in the NFL, change the numbers, I can point out with the numbers that he's absolutely right. Through 2 weeks so far this season, there have been 69 passing touchdowns. That's the fewest since 2006. There have been 41% designed run plays. That's the most since 2008. The average target depth is 7.1 yards. That's the lowest on record. And teams are playing this too high safety look 46% of the time. So what are we telling you? We're telling you defenses are doing this defense that Dan was just describing Offenses are reacting, and we are not getting the big, explosive, exciting plays. So, Mel, pick it up from there. Now that we've sort of set the table for exactly what your problem is with it, how would you try and solve it?
Well, I grew up with the best of the National Football League, 60s, 70s, into the 80s. You're talking about deep shots, right? The go route, the 9-route post. You're talking about Terry Bradshaw in a Super Bowl hitting John Stallworth. You see Leroy Irvin diving, right, just off his fingertip. There's the receiver. They laid it out there, right? Hit the receiver in stride, 65-yard touchdown. It's a beautiful thing to watch. That's what I want to see brought back to the National Football League. Okay, check down kings, bubble screen sensations, boring football. Game manager, I get it, but I want to see those deep shots. That's what the NFL was built on. I grew up with John Unitas, Fran Tarkington, Ken Stabler, Darryl LaMonica. You talk about quarterbacks, Joe Namath. It was just right. Brett Favre when he was doing what he did. Burt Jones with the Baltimore Colts. You think about those quarterbacks who would throw the ball down the field. I'd say what Bradshaw did with Stallworth and Swan, Roger Staubach. That's what I want to see brought back. Say, well, you can't do that, right? Well, you got a 5-yard rule with the cornerbacks, right? The Mel Blount rule, right? Now with the push thing with Hurts, you got to be a yard back now, too. They're so daggone far back, and even though they're part of the damn play. I'm telling you, we got to change this thing, and we got to have, hey, you can warn them. They come up, hey, guys, you got to get up a little bit, right? You're too far back. Warn those safeties, but you got to figure out, competition committee, somebody's got to figure out what that depth is, but it's too far back right now. The NFL is being ruined by these too high safeties.
Okay, God bless the man. I love it, and he's right. And I'm explaining even further. Look, in Major League Baseball, they changed the rule. They outlawed the shift. They ruled where exactly a player is allowed to line up. They have made 1,000 changes in NFL rules over the course of time and meant to aid the offense, so this would hardly be something completely revolutionary. You play defensive back in the NFL. What do you think of it?
Hell, I love Mel. Mel probably said when I was coming out of Rutgers that I was a cover 2 corner because I couldn't play anybody man to man. Now he's trying to take out how I made my living. I disagree wholeheartedly with this one. Offenses figure out. Dano, you just said there's 2 spots on the outside they can throw the ball. Yeah. They can throw the ball down the seams. Well, hell, figure out how to get an accurate quarterback to get the ball into those spots, or run the daggone ball. He just said you only got 9 people on the field. You got enough to block. Run the ball. Figure it out. I played cover 2 against Peyton Manning, and hell, they shipped me out of Tennessee because we couldn't stop them in it. So they can figure it out. They just have to do it.
Harry, you're a receiver. What do you think?
Well, the running back position has become more relevant again, because there are answers for cover 2 and 2 high safeties, right? Run the football, because, coaches always taught me if a team is coming to a game playing 2 high safety, they don't respect your run game.
Nope.
Because they're telling you that you cannot run the football, but also from a wide receiver and a tight end perspective, you have your option routes inside, you have your choice routes, and you have your 2 high seam benders. Right? If you see 2 high on a seam as a slot receiver or a tight end, you bend it towards the middle, quarterback anticipate it, throw it in the middle of the football field, you can still have those explosive plays.
Hit him, man.
Yeah, got to be tough, though.
I love Mel. I love him. Here's the problem with the theory on that. It's not indefensible. It's not like you can't attack this defense. There's ways to do it. One, you have to run the football. Running the football can be super fun. Did you watch Monday Night Football and the Falcons did it? Did you watch the Saints do it to the Dallas Cowboys this weekend? And so there's 3 ways to get defenses to stop doing this. You have to run the ball and run it well. Number 2, you have to be precision in your pass game. We don't have that quarterback-wise on a consistent basis because they're so dynamic. Or 3, you have to run play-action pass. You have to. And so it's not that the depth of the safeties is different. Again, there's a defense in football named Tampa 2.
Right.
Because they played with 2 deep safeties. We just had more precision in the pass game and way more play action.
Again, teams are running it now on 46% of the plays, which is by far the highest on record. Mel, go.
Yeah, the 60s, 70s, 80s, they ran the football. You had running backs carrying the ball 25, 30 times a game. They were running the football, but you didn't have these safeties in the stratosphere. Bottom line is, what do defensive coordinators believe? Okay, I'm taking away the deep shot, right?
Sure.
And I'm going to let you run the football. What happens in the NFL? We always said, hey, those refs will slow them down. Those nice 15-yard runs, bring it back for holding. Let's put them behind the sticks. What do defensive coordinators want you? They want you in 2nd and long, 3rd and long, because you got no answer for that power in the NFL. So that's why you can run it. Then we'll slow them down and we'll bring it back for holding. That nice 20-yard run, look great. Bring it back.